The aliens thought they had mapped everything, every continent, every ocean, every island. Earth was fully explored, labeled and categorized in their vast interstellar archives. They were wrong, because there was a place that didn't exist on any human maps. And the last research team that went in never came back. Dr. Vake Lanner wasn't afraid of humans. As a Zyphran researcher, he had spent decades studying primitive worlds, their ecosystems, their species, their histories. He had catalogued planets where the oceans boiled with acid, worlds where the air itself was alive with microscopic predators. He had stood on the surface of dying suns. And yet, somehow, humans scared him the most. Not because they were violent, not because they were unpredictable, because they knew something the rest of the galaxy didn't. And for the first time in his career, he wasn't sure he wanted to know what it was. The mission had started like any other. His team had been assigned to conduct a final planetary survey of Earth, a routine expedition to confirm that every geographic anomaly had been properly documented. Everything was going smoothly, until they found the zone. It wasn't on any human maps. It wasn't listed in any Earth-based records. But their scanners picked it up, a massive, sprawling region in the middle of an uninhabited stretch of land. A place where the terrain didn't make sense. A place where all human expeditions had mysteriously avoided. And when they asked humans about it, they got the same answer. We don't go there. No explanations, no warnings, just a statement, absolute and unyielding. It was the kind of answer that made even the bravest Zyphran scientists pause. But Dr. Lanner, he had never been good at following warnings. The team arrived on Earth at dawn. The forbidden zone loomed ahead, stretching further than their eyes could see. The air was thick, not with pollution, not with radiation, but with something else, something wrong. The landscape shifted in ways that defied their instruments. One moment, the ground was solid beneath their feet. The next, it wasn't. The sky was too still. The air was too silent. Something was watching them, something that was never meant to be found. Dr. Lanner swallowed. For the first time in his life, he felt an instinct older than science. Fear. The team pressed on. Every step took them deeper into the unknown. They found no ruins, no settlements, no life. Just a void of information, a place that should have been teeming with history, but was instead empty. Then the first researcher vanished. One moment, she was there. The next, she wasn't. No scream, no sound, just gone. Panic set in fast. Dr. Lanner tried to call the ship. No signal. He tried to pull up the map. The coordinates had changed. He turned to the others, only to realize there were fewer of them now. Another one was gone. Then another. The shadows stretched longer than they should have. The wind whispered words he didn't understand. Something shifted in the distance, something that wasn't supposed to exist. And for the first time, he understood why the humans never talked about this place. They weren't hiding it from the galaxy. They were hiding the galaxy from it. Dr. Lanner turned, heart hammering, ready to run. And that's when he saw it. Something was waiting for them. Something that had been waiting for a very, very long time. Something that shouldn't have been on Earth at all. The last thing Dr. Lanner heard before the world went dark was a voice that wasn't a voice at all. It didn't speak. It understood. And then, like the others, he was gone. Somewhere far away, in a classified human facility, a red light began flashing. A simple message appeared on the screen. Unauthorized entry detected. Xeno presence confirmed. Initiating containment protocol. The human operator sighed, rubbing his temples. Idiots. He reached for the lockdown switch, because there was a reason humans never went there. And now, the rest of the galaxy was about to find out why. Dr. Vake Lanner wasn't dead. Not yet. But something was wrong. Very, very wrong. The first thing he noticed was the silence, not the absence of noise. Something deeper than that. A silence that pressed against his skull, wrapping around his thoughts like a heavy fog. He tried to move. Couldn't. Tried to speak. No sound came out. Panic set in. Where was his team? Where was his ship? Where was... Then he saw it, and his mind cracked. Far away, back in human-controlled space, a priority distress beacon activated. No message, no coordinates, just a single word. Gone. The humans sighed. Another team, another mistake, another cover-up waiting to happen. Back in the Forbidden Zone, Dr. Lana struggled to comprehend what he was seeing. The air wasn't right. The landscape shifted, pulsed, breathed. The ground wasn't ground. It was something else, something old, something that shouldn't be awake. And yet, it was. Because of him. He heard whispers, not words exactly, something before words, something that understood him without speaking, something that had been waiting. And then, the horizon moved, not a mirage, not an illusion. The world physically shifted, as if it had noticed him. And suddenly, Dr. Lana knew. This wasn't a place. It was a prison, and something inside wanted out. Meanwhile, in a human military command center, alarms blared. "Damn it!" muttered one of the officers, pulling up the data feed. "Another alien research team?" "Yup," his partner replied. "They never learn." Dr. Lana staggered backward, his vision warping. His brain screamed that this wasn't real, but it was. Too real. He turned, and there, standing in front of him, was himself, his exact reflection, staring back. But the eyes weren't his. They were something else, something inhuman, and they were smiling. Back in orbit, human military ships were already moving. Containment protocols had begun. They knew what the aliens had found. They always knew. And now they had one job. Make sure it didn't leave. Because the Forbidden Zone. It wasn't just a dead region. It was a warning. A scar left behind from something humans had fought before. And they weren't about to let history repeat itself. Down on the surface, Dr. Lana screamed. And the thing wearing his face screamed back. The last thing he saw before the world collapsed around him was the truth. A truth humans had buried for centuries, because they weren't afraid of what was inside the Forbidden Zone. They were afraid of what would happen if it ever got out. Dr. Vake Lana was not alone. Not anymore. And that was the problem. Because the thing wearing his face wasn't just a copy. It wasn't just some illusion cast by the shifting, impossible landscape around him. It was real. And it was getting closer. Up in orbit, the humans were already moving. Admiral Elias Voss stood on the bridge of the HSS Sentry, watching the holographic projection of Earth's surface with an expression somewhere between frustration and exhaustion. "How many this time?" he asked, rubbing his temples. "4 confirmed Zyphron researchers," his lieutenant reported. "But we're losing track of their vitals." Voss sighed. "They always go in," he muttered. "They never come out." "And yet," the lieutenant added, "more keep coming." Voss turned to the tactical display, where a red zone blinked ominously over a landmass that officially didn't exist. "Then let's make sure this time," he said, "they don't bring something out with them." Dr. Lana ran. He didn't care where, didn't care how. He just ran. Because the thing behind him wasn't just chasing him, it was learning. Every movement he made, it copied. Every time he tried to turn, it was already there. The landscape shifted beneath him, warping like a living entity. He wasn't running through a place. He was running inside something, and it was watching, waiting. Up in orbit, human warships activated their lockdown protocols. Earth's hidden defense grid came online, its satellites shifting, targeting systems locking onto the zone. Across every classified military channel, a single message was sent. Containment Protocol Omega. Full lockdown authorization granted. The humans knew what had to be done, because this wasn't the first time. And if they failed now, there wouldn't be a next time. Dr. Lana tripped. The ground wasn't solid anymore. It felt like stepping on water, except the surface didn't break. It just pulled him in. Something shifted above him. He rolled onto his back, gasping, and saw the thing wearing his face looking down at him. But now it wasn't alone. There were more of them. Copies of him, copies of his team, copies of something else. Something that didn't have a shape. Something that was just waiting to decide what it wanted to be. The air rippled, and then, for the first time, the thing spoke. "We remember you." Above the planet, Admiral Voss didn't hesitate. Fire. On the surface, the air split apart. A pillar of light erupted from the sky, striking the ground with horrifying precision. The zone collapsed. The impossible terrain cracked like glass, and everything inside it screamed. In the final moments before the Forbidden Zone was erased from existence, Dr. Lanner realized two things. One, the humans hadn't sealed this place away to protect themselves. They had done it to protect everything else. And two, whatever was trapped here was never meant to wake up. In orbit, the humans watched as the red zone on their scanners flickered, then vanished. The lieutenant exhaled. "Containment complete." Voss nodded. "Mark it in the report," he said. "Under what classification?" The admiral's gaze hardened. "The usual." And just like that, the Forbidden Zone was gone. No records, no survivors, no evidence that it had ever existed at all. The humans knew that soon enough, someone else would find it again. And when that day came, they would be waiting. The Forbidden Zone was gone. At least, that's what the official reports would say. Earth had erased it again, just as they had before. But the truth? Some things don't stay buried. Admiral Elias Voss stared at the holographic readouts, watching as the containment strike finished its work. On every sensor, every scan, the Forbidden Zone was officially wiped out. The land was whole again. It was like nothing had ever been there. But Voss knew better. He knew that wasn't how this worked, because this had happened before. And yet, somehow, the zone always came back. Deep beneath the Earth's crust, something shifted. A pulse, a whisper. Not a scream, not a roar, just a faint ripple, like a breath of air where no air should be. It traveled through the rock, through the water, through the very bones of the planet. And in a place no human had ever dared to go, something opened its eyes. Hours later, the report was filed. Containment successful, no surviving Xenos, no anomalies detected. The bureaucrats signed off. The world moved on, and Earth remained unexplored. At least the parts humans refused to talk about. Far away, in a classified military installation, a single alert blinked on a secured terminal. A warning, a signal, not from space, not from the atmosphere, from deep underground. Somewhere no human had been before, somewhere even they were afraid to go. The red light flashed once, then it stopped, as if it had changed its mind. Admiral Voss was still looking at the scans when the system flickered. His lieutenant frowned. "That's weird," she muttered, tapping the console. Voss turned. "What is?" She hesitated. "The Forbidden Zone readings are gone, like they should be, but something else just—" She trailed off. Voss narrowed his eyes. "Just what?" She swallowed. Something else just replaced them. Somewhere on Earth, in a place no one had ever mapped, the ground cracked. A new landmass formed. A new zone that had never existed before. And far beneath it, where no scanners could reach, something smiled. Because humans had never erased the Forbidden Zone. They had just moved it. And every time they did, it learned. Earth was quiet. Too quiet. The Forbidden Zone was gone, erased, wiped from every map, every record. But the ones who had buried it, they knew better. Because Earth had tried this before, and every time, it came back. Admiral Elias Voss sat alone in the command center, staring at the silent display. No alerts, no anomalies, nothing. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. Because whatever had been trapped down there, it was still awake. Beneath Earth's surface, Something shifted, not with force, not with violence, with understanding. The humans thought they had won, thought they had sealed it away again, but all they had done was move the lock. And locks could be picked. Somewhere, in a forgotten part of the world, a new landmass had formed. No one could explain it. No seismic activity, no tectonic shifts. It was just there, like it had always been, like it had always waited. The research teams sent to investigate, they never came back. The satellites that scanned it, their data didn't match. No one understood. But the humans didn't need to understand, because they already knew. Admiral Voss took a slow breath. He reached for a secured console, flipping open the highest priority encryption protocol, a message sent only once to those who needed to know. It moved again. That was it. That was all he had to say. Because the rest was just waiting for the inevitable. Somewhere, in the depths of the earth, something smiled. It had been patient. It had been quiet. But now it knew. The humans weren't its captors. They were just its keepers. And soon, it would no longer need them. Back in orbit, the command center went dark for 3 seconds. No alarms, no system errors, just a moment of silence. And when the lights flickered back, the encrypted message was gone, as if it had never been written. The humans sighed. They had delayed the inevitable again. But they all knew the truth. One day, someone would go looking. One day, someone would ask the wrong question. And when that day came, there would be no more warnings, because the thing buried beneath the earth, it had been waiting, and soon it wouldn't wait any longer.